morning. And
Hey, it's Renee. Welcome back to another episode of the Reset with Renee podcast. I'm so glad to have you here. I know it's been a while since I dropped a recording. There's been a lot of movement in my world. I've gotten engaged, I've moved, I've been digging in and doing some of my own healing. And so I'm glad you're joining me back for this return episode. And this episode is going to have pretty much two chapters. The first part of it is going to talk about the mother wound. So I'd like to show you all, this is a book that I love, Discovering the Inner Mother by Bethany Webster. Great read. And next week on Wednesday, May 8th, 2024, 10 a.m. Central Standard Time, I'm going to have a Zoom meeting where we heal the inner mother wound. So it'll be like a healing circle, more of a class, workshop, something you attend and you receive and you just be. So you take in information. So I'll talk about that in a little bit. But first part's talking about that upcoming program, and then I'm going to follow up with some concepts related to that. So many people have what's called this mother wound, and it's just part of human nature. So I'm not here to shame anybody's mom or rally against moms in any kind of way. I am a mom, I have a mom, and I work with a lot of women. So I do know that many of my clients share with me some of their struggles, their conflicts, mixed feelings, mixed emotions, burdens, responsibilities, obligations, and the mix of all of that can be quite messy. And because our society has such a code of honoring your parents and keeping things private, and not severing relationships or having more chaos or disconnection, many people don't feel safe to talk about the mother wound they carry with significant people in their world. So that's why I'm offering this healing circle next week on Wednesday and talking about it today on the podcast, because I'd like everybody to understand the mother wound. It really is impactful not only on my female identifying clients, but also on men. So any of the sons that were raised by a woman who was not adequately resourced or supported herself is inherently set up to be unable or unavailable to provide enough resourcing, support, nurturing, protection, and teaching. So those are all things that when we're young, we need from our caregivers and our moms, or a real source of nurturing. So there can be what's called like a mother hunger. You know, if you didn't get enough of your needs met, there can be like this void that you try to fill. And then, of course, you may have other ways of coping with mother hunger. And that would be, I call them the 5 Ps: people pleasing, peacekeeping, performing, producing, doing those sort of coping behaviors to keep mom or other people happy. So that's what happens when women are disempowered because of their personal story, because of their family history and lineage, because of society and the collective forces that are against us and not for us. That hurt gets passed down. You can even look at the epigenetics of that if you're interested. And coping skills also get passed down or co-created. And so that's where a lot of my clients struggles with the coping skills, with the hurt, and then also with the changes that happens developmentally over a lifespan. I mean, no one person stays the same age. They don't stay at the same degree of health. And so a lot of other Gen Xers like myself and some other generations, you know, you may find yourself at that place midlife where maybe your parents are aging or they've been ill and you're needing to adjust your relationship. So perhaps they were able to be wonderful caregivers before, they had all that resourcing and availability, but now it's flipping. You're becoming their caregiver, they're looking to you for that. So there's a lot of things that can impact, I'm looking at my notes, um, our connection to our mom, living or deceased, known or unknown. I know some women who have, and people who have, were adopted, didn't know they were adopted, discovered they were adopted later, whatever the reason, did a DNA test, and had to deal with some shock, some disbelief, some betrayal, some feelings around that. Um, so there's so many things that can happen. And then, of course, when our parents pass over or cross over and we lose them here in this human lifetime, that also then triggers grief, may trigger regret, may leave space for other things to come up that you weren't able to address while they were living. So there's a lot of things that can happen. Um, and so what I see with my clients is when they have that mother wound or they have that mother hunger, they have that void where they didn't have enough of what they needed as an adult, then in relationships or in challenging circumstances, it's like they don't know where to turn to, right? It's like, I've never gotten the nurturing. I don't know how to give it to myself. I don't know how to resource enough because I've never received enough of it myself. Um, Connection may be hard. Asking for help may be hard. And so there's all these like obstacles because they missed all of those things developmentally. And so there's real grief in the mother wound. There's real grief in the mother hunger. It's like there's often a longing and a sadness and sometimes an anger about what you didn't get or what you did get that you didn't want, and how that's carried with you across the lifetime. So that is the truth. And sometimes truth really hurts. Reality bites. I think that was a movie back from my day. um, there's no going back and redoing that. Your mom's not ever going to be able to do it different at the time that you needed her to do it. Doesn't mean things can't be different for some folks, possibly now moving forward. And for a lot of folks I talk with, the reality is their parents are where they are. They may not ever change. You may be getting the best of what they have at this moment and in the future or in the past. And so it's accepting that as your truth. And there's grief with that. So we don't want to bypass the grief. We don't want to ignore the anger. We don't want to ignore the isolation or the shame. What I do want to offer you all is an opportunity to join me next week and to receive unconditional love, to receive resourcing, to learn about the frequency of the Great Mother, and to begin to explore how you can connect to that frequency in your own way. So I hope that people will join and share maybe how they have done that in the past or what they might be open to. I know I certainly can share a few things about that myself. So we can't undo the past, but we can resource for the present and moving forward in our journey. And it's really about moving from disempowerment to empowerment. There's so much of the work of what I do with my clients, and especially those who are recovering from CPTSD. So check out my Instagram, shoot me an email. If you're looking for the registration information and can't find it, be happy to hook you up, and I'd be so happy to have you join me. So the second part of this podcast episode, I want to talk about disempowerment and empowerment in a more practical way, things to consider, which may seem sort of separate and unrelated, but they all kind of come together on a healing journey. So that's what I want from my clients, is to move from feelings of disempowerment to empowerment. I'm going to take a quick drink. Bear with me. Thank you for waiting for me. So one of the first steps is really knowing your truth. And that can be challenging when you are used to orienting to others and providing what they need for safety, survival, or connection. Resetting, reconnecting to what you know to be true for you can be disorienting, it can be scary, and it can threaten your relationships. So there's a lot that goes into that. But if you're moving from disempowerment to empowerment, that's an important step. Reclaiming your own personal power, your own seat of authority and knowing, and rebuilding the trust that you have with yourself. Because so many people I talk to have a lot of self doubt that they carry. So it's like not pushing that away, but letting that go away and to really refocus and reset on what you know to be true for you in this present moment and dealing with that, the positive, the negative, the neutral, all of it. That's the way you get back into your personal power. Step two, I did a post not too long ago about FOG. FOG is an acronym for fear, obligation, and guilt. And those are some tactics that a lot of my clients report that they struggle with in their relationships and can be part of the toolbox for some parents. You know, instead of assertive, direct request, you might get guilt trip or passive aggressiveness, silent treatment, or worse, a campaign against you. So I do have experiences of that in the work that I do. So if you've had that, I'm so sorry. And I want you to know you're not alone. A lot of people I work with have experienced that. And so when fear, obligation, and guilt comes up, when that's put on us, our task is to begin to handle that differently, to really, again, connect to our truth, to stay centered, to be neutral and non reactive, and just really radiate this is my truth, and I'm free to live from that place, and so are you. Um, And we do the same thing with projection. So sometimes people who are not in their personal power will project a story or a narrative onto you in an effort to get you to do what they want you to do or to stop getting you to do something they don't want you to do. And so it's like really just regrounding in your truth and knowing that's not for you and not dancing with that. So that's number two. Number three, I've had a couple posts lately over on social media about owning your story and also dropping the struggle story. So, first, own your story. That is, do you know who you are? Can you claim and own all aspects of your life history, the story to date? Or are you ashamed? Are you hiding? Are you making stuff up? Are you putting a mask on? Are you pretending? Are you holding stuff down? All of that will leak your energy and it keeps you disempowered and reactive. So, owning your story really is part of owning your truth, part of personal power, and allows you to move forward more empowered. And dropping the struggle story. So, if you notice fear, agitation, criticism, or I'm going to air quote this again, something, a pattern that you're really familiar with, where you feel like you're getting hurt, you're on the losing end of the bargain, someone's out to harm you. It's really easy to get stuck in the victim story or a story or narrative you are used to running because it's happened so many times. And so I'm saying this not to shame you or to blame you or to say that's a problem, but just to highlight that when there's been hurt and harm repeatedly, and especially in a relational context, um, it's pretty common to run some disempowering energy, or at least have parts of you that are running disempowering energy. Sometimes you'll have parts that'll want to power over to flip flop that winner loser dynamic. And that's not empowerment either. That's still you being in a power struggle. So if you identify with the flip flop, no, we don't want that. We don't want a power struggle. We want pure personal power. You're grounded, centered, neutral. You don't have to effort to be there. It's just you. So So signs that you're in the struggle story is like if you're in a spiral, especially like a shame spiral. I have some notes here I'm looking at. You avoid, you stuff, you deny, you bypass with positivity. Um, you feel stuck, you feel tight, you feel constricted and constrained. So all of that is data or information that you're running or rerunning a loop from the past in the form of feelings, impulses, narratives, which is a story. And so to see that for what it is the way you cope. And it's limited in its perspective. It only knows how to do one thing, like a horse with blinders on. And so you want to step out of that. So ways you begin to do that is to ask, what's possible? What's another perspective? Sometimes you need to talk with other people for help with that when you're really stuck in that loop. What seed can I plant that may need some time and nurturing for it to unfold? How can I begin with the end in mind? Like, how do I want to tell the story in reverse? Do I want my family to tell a story about me at my funeral that I'm bitter, resentful, not fun to be around? Or do I want to be like, man, she faced some adversity and she found her light, she found her truth, she found her freedom, and she showed us a different way forward when life gets tough. So beginning with the end in mind, and how do I want to tell the story in hindsight? Like for me personally, when I get stuck, that is one of the things that my loved ones remind me of, especially my mentor. And then what context are you setting for yourself? Because if you are stuck in a struggle story or a victim story, you're in a training ground, and you can either run the same plays and get the same results, or you can go, this is an opportunity to level up. I think about it as a video game. Like, okay, I have run this level over and over and over. I'm ready to go to the next one. I picture Donkey Kong, just to let you know how old I actually am. Donkey Kong going to the next level. So, and then lastly, how this all ties together. The mother wound, mother hunger, disempowered moms, disempowered women, disempowered people. That happens as a result of relational trauma and neglect, causing pain, harm, and disconnection. Also happens because of our collective. There is a ginormous power struggle out there in the world. And that also contributes to fear and feelings of disempowerment. So it's like micro level and it's at a macro level. It can be a lot. So really, if you're trying to move from the void, the victim story, the disempowerment, the way through that is reconnecting inside, reclaiming your authenticity, your truth, having agency, making choices, tending to your wounds, those spaces and parts and places inside of you that carry hurt that's not been tended to yet. Alchemizing fear. Fear is everywhere. Fear comes from your lived experience. Fear comes from your lineage. For a lot of people, fear comes from the collective. So it's hard. That's a hard thing to just release once and be done. It's like something you gotta keep alchemizing and moving through. And then unwinding conditioning. We all receive conditioning from our caregivers, family, groups that we are part of, school, jobs, religion. I mean, the list goes on and on. So part of growing up is looking at your conditioning and deciding what about this fits and aligns with who I am and my values, and what do I need to release and let go of and reclaim and rediscover for me. So that's moving into empowerment. So if any of this appeals to you, I invite you to join me next Wednesday for the workshop on the mother wound, or reach out and do some one-on-one work. Or if you're not quite ready for that, continue to consume resources free here on the podcast, YouTube, on any of the other socials where you find Reset with Renee. So I really want to thank you for listening and staying with me this long. And I hope I'll see you on May 8th. In the meantime, take good care, and I'll see you for your next reset.